Today I'm going to talk to you about the opportunity we've had in recent years to talk about the movement of livestock either throughout the United States or around the world. Our company actually has been around also for a long while, but this company itself is what we have put together, the Surber family, which includes grain elevators, it includes feed mills. We sell all kinds of feed, not only into the United States, but around the world, Malaysia, Indonesia. But we also have the swine business, which we are a multiplier. We raise gilts and we raise sires for PIC, and we've done that for about 16 years. And that's what really kicked us off in that business. We're also in the dairy business. But in the movement of livestock, which we started at that at 2001, and raising gilts, we first started moving them across the United States, and then as PIC's market expanded, they wanted to start moving animals, of course, outside the United States, and we've been involved with them in that. And what we found was that we felt there was a real need for somebody to concentrate on the animal. Because on the outside looking in, 5 years ago, we didn't feel there was enough emphasis on that. And I'll digress just a minute here because, the exciting thing about animal agriculture today in the United States is we're the head hog at the trough, meaning we here in the United States, the whole world comes here because our animals are genetically superior and our animals have probably the highest health status in the world today. And those countries that are wanting to become more food sufficient naturally want to come and get those quality genetics and get that quality health. And we saw a real disconnect when people were moving animals from point A to point B in the care of the animal itself. And again, since we'd been doing it for a while, we thought maybe we could provide that service. We was providing that service for PIC. Maybe we could provide it with the other livestock too. So we got in the animal business as far as the movement, and right now I think at the horse meeting, in one of these other ones, well, we work with Larry Baker Livestock, and they actually move and have been in this business a lot longer than we have. But what we do is we provide a service for Larry and others to get animals from point A to point B. Point A would be some origination point here in the United States. Point B would be somewhere else, either in the United States or the world. Of course, one of the things that has to happen is quarantining, and in the cattle business, that usually is required based on the country that is importing the animal, the protocol that's set up between APHIS and the actual country. And that could be anywhere from 3 weeks to 6 weeks, a series of vaccinations and blood testing for the health of the animal. And of course, the animal, again, has to be quarantined for a period of time, checked by the different veterinarians, and of course, maintained at a certain health status. This particular barn will hold 300 head. We've got another one that holds 500 head. So, we can put a lot of animals in quarantine depending on what the need is. But, that facility there, of all the facilities we could find, we felt that was the most animal friendly that we could come up with as far as protection from the sun in the summer, the weather in the winter, the drop curtains, the high ceilings for humidity, and of course the opening in the top. And it's done an excellent job. That's the inside of the barn there. These animals were going to Turkey. They were all pregnant with sexed semen. Obviously heifers inside those. And again, those animals they follow a certain feed regimen, usually recommended by the country coming in, and of course they monitor those. Over on the pig side, we have many barns very similar to this, and that's where we do a lot of the quarantining of the pigs. That particular barn will hold the total amount of animals that you can ship on a 747-400, which in the pig business, that's about 1,250 animals. And usually what you do is you're shipping gilts that are in that 70-pound range, and then boars that are usually at full grown 250 to 350 pound range. And obviously the biggest concern that you have in shipping livestock is expense. In fact, a typical shipment to China, for instance, we've shipped several pigs to China for PIC, and just the plane ride is about $450,000. So by the time you buy the animal, you quarantine, you move the animal, all the things that has to go on, you've got the best part of $1 million in what you're doing there. Now, the majority of these animals are, F1s, and they are, of course, meant to be the very early seed stock for the development of these countries, whether it be Brazil, Chile, Russia, China, all those different countries that, again, are trying to become more food sufficient. Another way you can quarantine, particularly dairy cattle, is actually out on pasture, which is very interesting in southern Ohio when you think about, I just showed you a confinement facility because they want to protect animals as best they can. But under the current rules and regulations, you can actually pasture quarantine animals. And a few years back, we were doing some quarantining for the Middle East, particularly Turkey, and 5,000-6,000 animals in a summer. And while that was going on, you've got a whole different set of challenges when you're doing it on a large volume basis. Again, these are heifers that are pregnant, and of course, pregnant with sex semen. And then these animals at that volume actually go by boat, not by plane. And then you get into some of the exotic things. Here's Ohio white-tailed deer. We shipped about 155 of those to Russia. The goal there was to establish a white-tailed deer private herd hunting area so that instead of Russians going to the United States to shoot white-tailed deer, they could do it for a whole lot less money in their own country as they develop those animals. That in itself provided challenges because, as you know, even though these deer are actually raised in northern Ohio on Amish farms and feedlots, except for the tall fences, very similar to how you would finish out cattle, they're still very wild, and the biggest challenge is you cannot scare them, because if you scare them, they're going to possibly hurt themselves or each other. This crate in itself, we utilized as much closure as we could with only small holes to, again, prevent the animal from all the noise and everything that's going on the outside. We actually used screening on the surface so that, again, the animal would be protected from the sun if you were parking outside, but at the same time, they're not going to have to deal with a lot of moving equipment and noise. There, we were actually building the crate in our crate building facility there. It's actually outside of Wilmington, and those crates worked excellent. We never lost an animal. In fact, we've been in this business for 5 years now. We've shipped tens of thousands of animals, and our claim to fame is we have yet to lose the first animal in shipping animals. So, and I believe that's a large part into being very, very concerned about how you handle that animal from point A to point B. There was a white one in there that sure caught everybody's eye. Here's the crates themselves getting ready to be loaded. And, one of the things that's always a concern with animals is, when you get ready to move them, you can do the best of planning, but, planes don't always come on time. And, we always have an agreement with the airlines that if we're not ready, they're just to take off without us. So, that's a challenge in itself. And lots of times animals can be on the tarmac for hours while there could be a breakdown. Nobody's fault. It's just a problem. But yet that animal is subjected to whatever conditions there are. So, we try to anticipate problems like that, and at times when those things happen, it usually pays off. When you take a look at some of the other things, these are actually geldings that, one of them, that we shipped over to Kazakhstan. The guy had bought a whole bunch of Angus animals, and he bought them out in Nebraska. I think it was about 3,000. And he was so taken by the horses were doing such a good job of handling the animals out on the range that they just they went ahead and bought the horses too and shipped them with the cattle. So you have some unique situations. So you got some big critters that go, and then you got some little critters that go. Here's an example of some pygmy goats that went to Saudi Arabia, and somebody asked me, they said, well, don't they eat goats over there? And I said, yeah, I think they do. And they said, well, what do they want them for? And I said, well, it must be appetizers, I reckon. But no, seriously, they actually use them for pets. And they're buying over in that area. A lot of people are buying those pygmy goats for pets for the house. And so we have shipped those very successfully. And then, of course, the mainstay of what we do is pigs. And here is a 1,250 head shipment. Again, that's the most you can put on a 747-400. And that's 29 positions, 29 crates. Some of the crates are double-decked with the big bores on them because you have a certain height, weight, or width and length for each position. And then the smaller pigs you can see in there, they go on the triple-deck crates, and those are the 60 to 70-pound pigs. There's the boars. Of course, you're going to send boars that are mature for a couple of reasons. Number one, you know what you're getting. They've already done with PIC World, they've already did a DNA analysis on them. They are at least 2 standard deviations better than the best pig that they've sent or what they're doing today. So, the latest technology is utilized in these animals that are going to be breeding stock. Here's an example of the crates themselves that are carrying the pigs over, and those are double-deck crates. And, we load those animals in head to tail, and the crates are before they're actually loaded. Back on that point I made about the Angus animals going over to Kazakhstan, this is the animals themselves that also went with the horses. We have a facility there at Sabina, which is in between Washington Courthouse and Wilmington, and we can house as many as 12 or 1,300 head at one time. And here we was actually just doing a feed, water, and rest. And that's where the animals, of course, coming from Nebraska, you want them only a certain amount of time in the truck. And, of course, they get off here. We provide them with hay. We provide them with water. And, of course, an ideal location. Tony Forsey called it the Taj Mahal of moving animals. But, again, we're trying to do the best we can for those animals, and it's only going to pay off for the end user. Animals are loaded and unloaded at dock height. In fact, if you read some research by even Temple Grandin, one of the biggest stresses on an animal is actually the loading and unloading, going up and down the chute. More danger, more injury occurs on the chute than actually on the truck going from point A to point B. So again, this is one way we can minimize that issue. Of course, I have to get a picture of my granddaughter in there feeding. Actually, those are Holsteins going to Thailand. And those also, of course, pregnant. Because, again, when you're spending that much money to fly an animal, you want to get 2 for 1 if you can. But, again, they're trying to upgrade their animal source, particularly the dairy side, and providing dairy products to their people. Here's an example at Rickenbacker where they flew out of. Those are the actual crates that they went in. We moved the crates up to Rickenbacker to get everything prepared for the evening. And we've got a unique thing kind of off to the right there is a panel van that we have actually modified, again, to reduce animal stress. And I'll show you that here in a second. But, the nice part about it is that actually fits outside those windows there. Well, it's actually the windows on the left. The windows in the middle there actually go out to the runway and the tarmac. And Rickenbacker is a great place to move livestock. They do a great job of helping you and providing any services that you need. But we'll actually park that trailer outside where that door is, and there's a door on either side, so we can back 2 livestock trailers up to that unit, as we're transitioning those animals into those crates. And here's a shot of exactly what's going on. So there on the left is the crate the animal is. The semis are parked on either side of the front end of that trailer. And inside that 53-foot trailer is enough transition where you can put the number of animals that you're going to put in that crate preloaded in the trailer so there's no pushing, shoving, or problems. Now let me tell you, if you've never been in this business where a lot of people are moving a lot of livestock all around the world, and like I say, I'm not going to throw any rocks here, but I'll just make the simple statement is there's a lot of people doing it that really ain't in the livestock business, meaning that's not their specialty. And, that's what we try to concentrate on. And let's see here. I got a little video just to show you the loading of this crate and how easy it is when you design the system for the animal and not for the people or the process. No, there you go. That's my son there, manning the gate. Don't get a lot easier than that. But again, it's a concentrated effort of pre-planning and pre-design. And of course, the animal, virtually is walking almost horizontal into the crate. And again, all designed to provide the least stress on the animal itself. There's the finished product. Somebody says, do they have enough room? Well, I did some measurements, and when I fly commercial, I don't have that much room. So that's the cattle business. And, one of our more recent shipments was to the Bahamas. And here's some goats or sheep, and the next slide is actually some goats. And I want to kind of go to the side here just a second and talk about the end user. If I can make one recommendation, and again, keep in mind, in this system, we did it all from start to finish, which we normally don't do. Somebody's already bought the animals and they got a plan, and we take them from there and then we get them on the plane. This time we was very involved with the folks at the Bahamas. Great people. They want to expand their goat and sheep population, getting more quality animals, getting more healthful animals. And we did that. We provided them with a lot of quality animals. And again, this is the best place to go in the United States. A lot of these came from Texas. Some of the goats came from Ohio. But the biggest problem that the end user, these countries have, is they come to the United States and they see a racehorse. But the way they handle the animal when they get there is like a workhorse. And let me tell you, that's apples and oranges. Meaning, if you're going to buy the best Holsteins in the United States, which those were, bred the best way you could have them bred, hand-picked across the United States, and you take them over there and you feed something that has about a 50 to 70% feed value, anybody in the dairy business will tell you the first thing, they ain't going to breed back. First, they ain't going to milk. Second, they ain't going to breed back. And third, they're going to be so thin that they probably ain't going to make it more than the calf that they had. Now, that's the reality. If you go back so many times and you see what has happened to some of these animals, and the problem is there's a disconnect between what they want and what they need. Big difference, big disconnect. And I always say I sold feed for years and years and years. And then I got the opportunity to be a feed sales manager. I got promoted. And my first statement to the feed salesman was that, first of all, I ain't going to manage you because, quite frankly, if you can't manage yourself, there ain't no way I'm going to. But the point is, customers always buy what they want. And sometimes it's what they need. So I would say this, for those of you that are directly or indirectly involved in animal export or getting into it or want to get into it, truly, there needs to be a lot more effort in the buyer to get them to see what they really need. And many times, they just need a workhorse type genetics because that's the way they're going to treat it. And they don't have the facilities to treat that animal like a racehorse. You know, if you take an Amish workhorse and lay it beside or stand it beside one of these that's going to race in the Kentucky Derby, you know, you don't have to be too smart. In fact, even from Southern Ohio, you can tell a big difference. Not only how they look, but how you got to treat them. And so the better job that we can do here in the United States of getting the buyer what they need, the more impressed they're going to be with the product that we sell them. Because I can give you example after example. There are countries today that are very disappointed in the product they got from the United States, even though that product was the best. But they didn't understand, they did not have the ability, the technology, the feed values, whatever, to treat that animal the way it had to be treated. The animal didn't perform, and they didn't know whose fault it was, but they was damn sure whose fault it wasn't, and that was theirs. So, as you look at the Bahamas, it was that type situation, and problems happened. That's of course, the goats that also went at the same time the sheep did, and they did have a disconnect. It wasn't the fact that the health or how they were going to treat the animal. In fact, they walked the extra mile, and we shipped a container of feed to the Bahamas ahead of time so that they could actually bring those animals, put them in pens, feed them the same feed they had when they left, and then transition them. Very smart, very logical, and it worked real well. Their problem was a logistics problem. The day we were supposed to ship the animals, they didn't have the barn ready. And that was about the same time the hurricane hit. And so it ended up their inability or lack of planning to get the barn done turned out to be very fortuitous. Had we shipped them, it would have been right in the middle of the hurricane. So that worked out. But the point is, we had to hold those animals for, I think, an extra 30 or 45 days. And again, it made a change in our system because, guess what? We had plans for the barn. Obviously, they had plans, but, you know, again, there wasn't a lot of effort or the best effort put out to handle them in the best manner possible. One of the things, again, on handling, we have another system we use for pigs and also for goats like this, and I'll show you how we do this. Now, I sped this up so it don't take a lot of time. We don't really work. We work fast. We don't work this fast, okay? There we go. We're taking them from the trailer to the crate. So we got 2 units. They're going back and forth like this, so there's no wasted motion. The animals go in. The right amount of animals that go in one of the decks of the crate are put in the blue unit. Then it's shuttled over to the unit. And then they're put in there, ready to seal up. And they just go back and forth until we get the entire crates full. We can actually load crates, I think, as faster than just about anybody. There's Larry Baker. He don't really walk that fast either. Larry and Judy do an excellent job as far as being finding animals for people, doing the best job, making sure all the paperwork's right. That's the finished product. That's the animals getting ready to go to the Bahamas, double decks. And of course, we use as much ventilation as we can. Don't have to worry with goats and sheep like you do with deer. So we take an entirely different approach.